Okay, welcome everyone to Coffee Chats. It's Katie and it is August and it is time to send the kiddos back to school. Who else is out there feeling a little bit frazzled because your kids have been home all summer and you cannot get in a routine and you have this like love-hate relationship? Maybe you have a hate relationship, maybe you have a love relationship. I'm not sure where you're at today, but that's what we're going to dive into because I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I am a woman, I'm a creator, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I like to have routines, I like to have rituals, and I've been doing this gig for about 8 years, and I want to share some of my secrets with you so we can all have a super peaceful school year as school starts to begin, okay? So this is something that I know that I am ready for in my life because of all the things I just mentioned, but I really do have a love-hate relationship with my kiddos going back to school next week. I love actually having them home. I love peaceful mornings. I love some of the things that we've been able to do, but what I'm telling you is they're starting to crave a little bit more routine, and like right now, this coffee chat that's going on, trying to get everybody out the door or quiet while I can hang out with all of you is not as easy. But I want us to create peace. My intention today is to give you some tools, to give you some thoughts, to give you some insight so that as we go out into the school year, some of you have already started. If you've already started, let me see. If you've already started, let me know. I want to know. Maybe you haven't, like right now, as I'm speaking to this, maybe you're going to listen to the broadcast later on. But my kids have like 10 days left before they go back to school. Okay. And I've got a lot of mom friends. And this coffee chat was actually inspired last night. I went to a barbecue with some friends and it's all moms. And then we said to ourselves, oh my goodness, like it's time for routine. Like we're all just like, we need to exhale. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, a couple little introductions that I want to talk to you about. Okay. So somebody just asked over on Instagram, what if I'm not a mom? What if I'm not a wife? What if I'm not those things? Keep on listening, please keep on listening, because what I'm going to talk to you today about is, this is a little bit a show more for the mamas, but this is actually pertains to all of us and all of us creating a little bit more peace in our lives and how not creating the peace through routines and making things a little bit simpler, how not creating that peace can actually start to destroy our physical health, our emotional health, and a whole lot of other things. So we're going to dive into a lot today. So first off, I want you to grab your cup of brew because this is Coffee with Katie. If you've never joined me, my name is Katie Glasgow, and every Wednesday, or about every Wednesday, I want to invite you into my home, into my space with your cup of brew. So maybe it's your cup of coffee, maybe it's your cup of tea. I don't know what you're drinking. Put it in your mug and let's just hang out. Let's gather, let's learn, let's chat, let's learn about the ancient ways. So on this show, I talk about ancient ways, I talk about women, I talk about entrepreneurs, I talk about getting spiritually aligned and in flow with yourself, because there's a different way to find peace and it's usually not the one that we're familiar with. And so that's what we're gonna talk about today and on every single episode. So you can always find me on Facebook Live, on Instagram Live at 10 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. That's Central Standard Time because I'm an Iowa girl. And this is going to be flipped into a podcast. So maybe you're listening to it and it's already the podcast. It's coming soon, I promise. So welcome. The first thing we're going to do is, if you have essential oils, I want you to put an oil on you this morning. Just relax, take a deep breath in and let it all out so we can have some fun. I've got my oils diffusing this morning. I have cedarwood, which is the oil of community, which is what I'm all about, is bringing us together as community. I have cedarwood and I have geranium going and I have myrrh this morning. It's a beautiful combination. It's got my 2 grounding oils. That myrrh is mother energy. It's really super grounding. It helps us connect with our inner woman self. And then we've got geranium that opens us up to receive. So that's what I've got going in my diffuser. I've got this little space set for you today. And today we're going to dive in about creating peace and routines and rituals in our lives. Okay, so school's getting ready to start. And I started this business when I was a stay-at-home mom. I started my doTERRA business. I started helping more women and more entrepreneurs. And as I've continued my journey over the last 7 years, I've seen and I've worked with so many women that, or I see it in my community and I see it around me, is that it's like we're waiting to exhale. We've got so many balls that we're trying to juggle in the air, and we're not quite sure how to drop one of them, because we think that if we drop one, they're all going to crumble and everything around us is going to crumble and we're going to be a failure. We're so afraid of failure as a mom or as a woman in whatever we're doing that we walk around. It's almost like we're on eggshells with all of these balls in the air. And we're waiting to exhale. We're waiting to exhale. And so what happens is, I want to go into a little bit more what's going to happen when it comes on the spiritual energetic side. And then we're going to go into some how-tos, what I do in my daily life to create more peace, because I'm here to teach you how to have more peace in your life. Okay, so we're walking around on these eggshells, okay? We've got all these balls in the air. The first thing I want you to do is you don't have to do it now, but at some point, because especially if you're driving, I want you to think about, what are these balls that you have in the air? What are these juggling balls? All of these things. You're almost like this Gumby, right? You're stretched here. You're going to volunteer here. You're going to be part of this. You're going to be part of that. And you have gotten to the point that you have no idea how to say no. Your life is chaotic. You're running your kids to a million different activities all at the same time. You've got 4 kids in 5 different activities. You don't know when you're supposed to sleep. You don't know when you're supposed to exhale. You like self-care? Let's not even talk about that. Like, we don't even know what that is. How many of you are out there, you're self-medicating yourself every night with a bottle of wine? That's your favorite thing to do, is to curl up on the couch every night. And let's just process those emotions with a bottle of wine, a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, 3 glasses of wine, because that's the only way you know how to wind down. And here's the thing. I'm not opposed to the glass of wine, but what I see happening way too much in the mom circles is that that's the only way we know how to relax. And then we never actually process our emotions. And it actually adds to this great big giant ball of the Gumby, of the balls, of everything. And so what happens is, I want you to imagine your body in this state. I want you to feel it. I want you to take some deep breaths, and I want you to feel it, because I know you. I see you out there and I see what's going on. Okay. You're coming to me in tears, and I know you're out there because I hear you and I speak to you and I feel you and I've worked with you. So get to the stage of we're no longer in denial. Okay. We are no longer in denial. This is your space to exhale. So I want you to think about that. I want you to just, what am I doing? What are all these balls that I'm trying to hold, and why the heck am I trying to carry them all, right? Who gives a shit if I have perfect hair or perfect house or whatever? But for some reason, we're all like connected to all of this, okay? So what happens after a while is our body, our physical, our energetic body, and our physical body, there's science behind this, it goes into what we call a completely constricted state. So if you can't see me right now, if you're joining me live somewhere else, it's like we're all tangled up. I want you to imagine your body in a straitjacket where your body has no way to move, and you're getting your whole body has fallen asleep because you're in this straitjacket. There's no flow. It's like you're a twisted, turned up knot of a hot mess, right? Like you're all twisted up because you're trying to hold on to everything and you don't want anything to drop. And that's called a super, super, super constricted space of energy. Okay. So energetically, it's very, very constricted. We can't flow. Everything's all wound up. Because imagine if you're all in a straitjacket, if you would try to put water or a straw that's all bent and twisted, and you tried to get water to flow down through it, it wouldn't flow. Your body, it's constricted. And so what happens is when we're in this energetic, we're trying to control everything. We're trying to hold all the balls. We're trying to be in this space. what happens is that's called the space of really, it's strong masculine energy. And we'll talk more and more about this on this episode, but it's strong masculine energy. And when we're in that space, nothing can flow, and it's a super constricted space. And so what starts to happen, because our energetic and our physical self, it's interconnected. They're not separate, they're interconnected. And so we might be in this space and we think we're doing awesome because we're drinking our water and we're taking our supplements, or maybe we haven't even remembered to do that. We're eating right, or whatever it looks like. But what happens is our body can't receive any of those nutrients. Nobody's talking about this. Our body cannot receive the nutrients we are putting into our body, and we go into a state of something called adrenal fatigue, right? Whatever that is, right? Or we get these mystery illnesses because we can't figure out what's going on. We're doing all the right things and we're so controlled and we're controlling everything we're eating and all the things. And we get into this space of such constricted energy that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're eating McDonald's or if you're eating greens, your body is not receiving the nutrients because you're like this, and your body starts to go, what are you doing? Right? And then we start to get women that are on a lot of antidepressants and a lot of anxiety medicine and a lot of emotional issues, and we start shoving it down with the wine, or we start coating it with the prescriptions, right? Okay, so I work with a pharmacist, and she said, those kind of drugs, okay, now here's the thing. I don't want any of you to think that I am against you using a tool that you need in your life, because mental illness is serious. And if you need help, you need to get help. But what I'm telling you is that it's overprescribed. And I've talked to medical professionals, and I work with them daily, and I work with pharmacists, and they tell me, yes, it's overprescribed because of this society where we think we have to hold on to everything. We think that we have to hold on and we have to control everything, because if our hair isn't perfect and our house isn't perfect and our kids aren't in 1,000,001 activities, that we are a failure. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Who am I hitting home with right now? Who do you have in your life that you know that's in this space? And it might be like on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe you're just starting to get into this. Maybe you're already there, okay? But I'm telling you this because it's a problem that I see each and every single day, and it's on my heart that this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach you the peace. I'm here to offer the light and offer a different way that works a whole lot better, okay? And so we've got all this stuff going on, and we're in this constricted state, and in women, adrenal fatigue and all these things are on the top of the list. But how many of you are getting sleep? How many of you have a practice every day to center yourself? And here's the other thing. This is where it goes. We're going to just keep going. Like, so our physical body is suffering. We might be getting migraines. We're causing hormonal imbalance. And then after a while, this constricted state, it doesn't just lead to mystery illnesses. It leads to a whole lot more. So how many people do you know that like early onset stuff is starting to happen earlier than it has in any other generation? Okay. And so then what happens is this, is that our children and the people around us, most people operate in the zone of energy. Okay. So if mom's all like this, what do you think the kids are like? Moms, this episode is for you. So if you don't have kids, right, this also pertains to your physical space in your home. If you haven't created an environment of peace because you aren't at peace, your kids probably aren't at peace either. Are they getting sick more often? Are they having troubles in school? Is their discipline out of control, right? Where are we at with our kids? Because kids only know energy up until a certain age. They only operate in the zone of energy. So if you're scattered and all over the place and depleted, how are they supposed to connect? What are they supposed to do? They act like you. What are we teaching our kids? Moms, one of our greatest things in this world is to teach our kids a better way. But what are we teaching them right now? What are we teaching them right now? Okay, so there's a lot of things we can't control. So many things in this world we can't control. But we can control us, okay? So right now, before we go any further, before we start to go into steps, I wanted you guys to understand what was going on, and I wanted to drive it home. I only the truth will come out of me. I want you to pause. One of your activities is going to be to start to write down, okay? But I want you to pause, and I want you to all just take a big breath. Whether you're listening live, you're listening later on, I want you to close your eyes for just a moment, and I want you to inhale. And I want you to exhale. If you're on this call, I trust that you're ready for the next steps. That for some reason, whatever I'm saying to you today is going to take you to the next steps. You're ready to hear it. You're ready to have more peace in your life. You're ready for the next step. And I want you to know I'm here to create that space for you in so many ways through this call, lots of other things coming in the works in the pipeline, but you are supported and you do have a tribe that will help you to take the next steps, okay? To learn how to do less in your life. So as I listen to you and I listen to moms and I listen to everybody around me, I start to realize all the little things that I've done in my life so that I do have peace. And I'll have people that constantly say to me, oh, I don't want to bug you because I know you're so busy. Here's the reality. I have simplified and created so much peace in my life. I'm not busy. I am busy, but it's with passion and I love it and it lights me up because I've figured out the tools. And I started figuring out these tools several years ago, and I learned them from my mom and I learned them from my grandma. And I learned them from everyone else. And so now I'm here to teach you those. So take a big breath and know you are supported. You have support all over the place and you are here. So let's dive into what we're going to do about it, okay? And I'm going to tell you this. This is going to be a couple-part series. We're going to work on a few steps right now, but then next week we're going to start to talk about some different things that we can do in our homes for our kids, how to create peace for our kids, but we got to start with us first, okay? We got to start with us. So the first thing I want you to do is we have to be in alignment with what our priorities are. What are our priorities? Because a lot of times we start to get so many activities and so many things on our calendar that that's where all of the balls start to juggle. And the reality is that most of the stuff that's on our calendar isn't in line with what our life priorities are, okay? So the first assignment that you're going to have, I love giving assignments because I feel like they bring home what we're talking about. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to kind of start to, it's not to start to write down what all the balls are. We're going to get to that. That's going to be assignment number 2. But the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about what are your priorities as you go into the new school year and setting your home up for a space of peace, right? Because activities are starting again. Like, hey, you want the kids back in a routine, but there's also more commitments that come with that. Okay, so summer's kind of lazy daisy, whatever, but we're going back into the school year. So, you know, there's football camps and there's football and there's games and there's events and there's PTA and there's blah, 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 everything. Okay. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself, what are my priorities? And I want you to actually categorize these into 2 different areas. The first priority is going to be, what are your priorities basically in general in life? Okay, now these are going to be ever changing. I ask you, I invite you to actually look at them a couple of times, right? Not just once, but look into them often, review them often. I like to review my things, my life priorities, probably about every 3 months. They might be ever changing, okay? So what are your priorities in life? What are your priorities in life? And then your second list as you're thinking of these things are, what are my priorities for the next, maybe until the end of the year, the next 5 months, September, October, November, December. Okay, that's actually 4 months. What are my priorities? Okay, and so for me, my priority is that I want to live a wellness lifestyle. My health is at a top of my priority. Okay, so the way I eat, the way I move, my sleep, all of those things, because I understand now I can't pour from an empty cup. Okay, so I'm a big priority, and that's not selfish, ladies, right? Because I'm a priority because everything funnels from me. So I need to make sure I'm filling my cup in some way so that, remember, your kids are in the zone of energy, your husband, like if you're not getting along with your husband, that's affecting your kids. And so I'm a priority. Okay. So my health, my well-being, and what that looks like to me is 30 minutes of daily exercise. My food is right. So you decide what your priority, what does that mean? And maybe for you, this is brand new in your journey. So maybe when you say health is your priority, it's drinking enough water every day and remembering to take supplements. You're going to do something that's for you. You're going to start a new workout routine. You're going to start not everything at once. Okay. We're going to start with one thing. Okay. So what does that priority look like? Maybe you have an overall life priority as your health and your goals, but for the next 4 months, you're going to get on a better nutrition routine. Okay. And you know that if you're listening to this, that's one of my jams. So I can help you do that. But if you're, so does that make sense? So you're that priority. Now, number 2 is, for me, it's my relationship with my husband, because again, if my relationship with my husband isn't flowing, it's trickling down into everything. It's trickling into my business. It's trickling into my kids. It's trickling into all areas. So that's one of my priorities. Okay. So the next thing is my kids are my priority, and like raising my kids to know what health means, right? So raising my kids to know what health means. So I'm making sure they're getting their right nutrition, right? They're doing things. They're all of these. So my kids are a priority. That I'm raising them to be Christ-centered is one of my priorities. That I am raising them to learn peace and to not think that they need to do it all, to be beautiful, functioning members of society. And then my third mission, my third priority in this world is to share these gifts with you, right? I know it's on my heart. I've been told multiple times from those surrounding support that is unseen, those unseen realms of power, that my children have most of what they need, and more of God's children need me. Okay. So my priority is you. And for the next couple months, it's growing my business to a level that it's never been at, because that to me represents more of you having the freedom that you need. Okay. So these are my priorities. And I might have this fall, this is in my doTERRA business. This is a big time. So I know that my doTERRA business is going to take more hours this fall in lieu of less. Okay. So first, figure out your priorities. What are your priorities? Okay. What are you here to do? And again, this is going to be ever changing. It's going to be evolving, but start with, what do I have going on? Okay. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to look at what you've committed to, and I want you to look at your calendar. Do your priorities align with your schedule? Our goal, our intention is to start to bring those two more and more together. Now, it's not going to look perfect at first, and there may be things that you've committed to that right now you can't get out of, but what are you going to be able to do? Like, how can you start to jam? Your intention is to start to flow those two together like yin and yang, right? Because when you can start to flow those two together, that's where the peace comes from. Okay. And you might not have a mission and a purpose right now in your life. You might not know what you're doing. That's okay, because the first step always is to get everything in order in your home. Right. And so it might be you, and it might be your family, and it might be your husband. Let's get that together. And then we go into the next phase of, what am I here to create? But a lot of times we don't know that. We got to get the other piece figured out first. I didn't know that for a really long time, right? I just knew I needed to get this together. Okay, so we're going to jive them together. So I'm going to give you some examples so you can start to see what that looks like. So remember, I told you that health was my priority. And so when I start to plan out my week, when I start to plan out my month, when I start to see requests coming in, I just look at my list and I say, does this align with my priorities, or does this not align? And then it makes it easier and easier to start to say, no, not right now. That doesn't work for me. Or, you know what, I'm going to have to put you on the back burner for right now, because I want to make sure that everything I'm doing, I am lining up with what my priorities are. Okay, so Remember I said that health for actually myself, my husband, and my kids was super important. And so I know that the foundation of health is actually your food. Okay. And so your food trumps all. And so I look at my calendar, and one of the things that actually makes everything simpler is if I know exactly what we're going to eat every single night of the week. Okay. And so making sure that we have the groceries we need in the home, making sure that we have the meals planned out, that actually, maybe I have to spend a little bit more time at first trying to simplify that. But in the long run, that simplifies everything in my life, okay? Because, I know you've heard this in the meal planning and you're like, whatever, we're trying to simplify everything, okay? Women, our brains are constantly on overdrive. And so if we're every morning, if we don't even know what's going to happen for dinner, the entire day, there is a compartment in our brain that is taking up space trying to figure out what's going to be at dinner. And if we have not meal planned out and we don't have the groceries, that compartment is even bigger, because it's not just figuring out what the groceries are, what the meal is, but it's, do we have all the ingredients? Do I need to make time to stop at the store? Am I going to stop at the store before I pick the kids up or after I pick the kids up from practice? Do you see? So everything starts to get like fuddle-juddled in our brain, right? We've got too many things. All the balls are up in the air. Well, what if I just spent 30 minutes on a Sunday, and I'm going to give you some tips on this. I spent 30 minutes on a Sunday and I planned out the whole week, and I did aisles online from Hy-Vee or whatever, wherever you're at, so many grocery deliveries. And I planned out the meals, and I had a Monday evening delivery, and I knew that everything was in place. And that was one thing I didn't have to worry about all week. Do you see how that clears space? So then I can be like, okay, now what's next? Okay, so a lot of times we think, I don't have time to stop and do these things. You don't have time to stop and not do these things, my darlings, okay? So maybe meal planning isn't your jam. Maybe you don't like to cook. Do a meal delivery service. Do something that, like, I love to cook. Cooking is my creative time, okay? But I know it's not everybody's jam. So figure out a way. There are so many things out there now to make our lives easier with meal prep, okay? This is how simple we get it, okay? Because I don't want to think about anything, okay? My goal, so that my priorities and my calendar is lined up, my goal is to make sure that my life is as simple as possible. So I'm thinking about the least amount of things as possible, so that I can put my creative energy into serving people, okay? Or I can put it into my kids and we have a space of peace, okay? So this is what we do. Is Tuesdays, or every Tuesday night is a taco night, and every Friday night is pizza night. There is one night of the week that is always leftovers. So look, that's 3 nights that are taken care of, okay? Maybe you have one night a week as a family that you allow yourselves to go out to eat, right? And have fun and you go out to eat. So maybe that's 4. Oh, I only have 3. Okay, so do you know how simple we have it? One night is chicken, one night is beef, one night is pork. Fish, if we don't go out. Okay, so do you see how easy that is? We have a theme for every night. So maybe it's Meatless Monday, Taco Tuesday, Wednesday is whatever. You decide, but make it simple. Why do you have to try a brand new recipe that you've never tried before? Like, healthy eating is actually really simple, right? Grill some meat, make a salad, make some vegetables, make it simple. Don't add stress on yourself because you think you have to make some kind of elaborate meal. You don't. That's bullshit. Okay? And most of the time, like I said, it's healthier for your body if you keep it super simple. You eat real food. Eat real food. Okay? So that's where I'm going. But do you see how I'm making it as simple as possible? Tuesday taco, Friday pizza, and I alternate things in. By doing that, I could actually meal plan out for a month if I wanted to, not just a week, okay? You could actually make a monthly meal plan, and then you can repeat it every single month, okay? That's how easy it is. And then you go through the grocery list and you look and you see, and you create the grocery list and you go shopping once a week. Do you know how many moms, this like always shocked me because I grew up on the farm out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a big deal to go to the grocery store. We had our own meat. We had some of our own things, but it wasn't like we could stop by the grocery store on the way home from work. My parents were on the farm, and to go to the grocery store is a big deal. So my mom would go to the grocery store like every 2 weeks, and she would have 2 carts full of groceries, and she would get all the things. She had a Suburban, my friend Wendy, R.I.P. Wendy. She called it the grocery getter, and my mom would have this big Suburban and she'd have it full of her groceries. Okay. We had gotten, when I first left Iowa and I moved out and I was at work with people, I was shocked by the number of people that actually would either eat out every single night, which is not only expensive, but it's not healthy for you. I don't care how healthy of an option you have, it is not healthy. And they would stop at the grocery store every single night on the way home, and they would always be constantly like, are you guys with me? Is that you? Okay, so simplify it. Simplify it. I mean, think to yourself, just close your eyes and imagine that. You meal planned out. You have everything you need. You don't have to pick the kids up and then stop at the store and then go home. You're creating more work for yourself by not doing it. Okay? So make sure your meals are planned out for the entire week. Okay? If you don't like to cook, like I said, do a meal prep service. Sometimes we think in our head, because we're women and we think we're supposed to do everything by ourselves. We're jacked up society, right? We think we have to do everything by ourselves. Sometimes, I've talked to women that they have somebody come in that meal preps for them for the week. They do the grocery shopping, they meal prep, they put it out. She said they actually save money by doing that because they are not eating out. Okay, so they're not eating out because they didn't have something planned for dinner. They're only buying the groceries that they actually need for the meals. Okay, and they love it, right? So think to yourself, a lot of times we have it in our head, well, I can't afford this. If you're single out there, I know I had some single ladies out there that don't have kids yet, do them, and you don't like to cook, it's actually cheaper for you to go and just get the meal prepped things, okay? Because it just is, okay? It just is. Because by the time you buy all the ingredients and you're cooking for one, it's not as, so if your health is your priority, you're going to meal plan out. And I always spend a lot of time on that, but I really wanted to give you ideas because mamas, this is where I see you spending a lot of your time. Okay. So, and like I said, if it's not your jam, find somebody that it is. Don't limit yourself because you think it's going to be more expensive, because a lot of times it's not. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Meal prepping out is not only simplifying a lot, it's making my family healthier, right? And health is a priority for all of my family. And so I can choose my ingredients and things like that. It's making my family healthy. So I'm kind of combating a couple of different goals. And the next thing is that it's super important that we eat dinner together as a family around the kitchen table a couple of nights a week. Now, we've got a lot going on. We've got some kids activities, which we're going to talk about that next. We've got some kids activities, and I've got oil classes and things like that, but we have nights of the week that we know we can eat together always. And we try to aim for 4 nights a week that we're actually eating together as a family. We're always eating breakfast together, things like that. So just those little things can actually start to create peace in your home, because making sure you're spending that quality time with your spouse, with your kids, things like that, that can happen around the dinner table. So you can combat a couple of things all at once. Okay. So that's where we're at with that. Okay. So also looking at your schedule and how many things have you committed to that bring you no joy? Not 1 ounce of joy. Get them off your calendar. Okay. Unless it's because it gives your child joy. Otherwise, get it off your calendar. How many activities do you have your kids in, and why? Why do you think your kids need to be in everything? Why do they need to be in all the things? They don't. Who said they needed to be in all the things, right? And I have a lot of parents that will tell me, well, I put them in there because it keeps them busy, it keeps them active. That's just because that's all they know, right? Kids also need downtime. They also need a lot of downtime, okay? And so if we're the ones that have constantly created it, a lot of times we're the ones that create them always being busy, that doesn't allow them to know downtime, because they're constantly, their little brains, so if we're all over the place, their little brains, remember, only energy, their little brains are constantly going, what's next, what's next, what's next, well, how am I going to be entertained, what's next? If that's how we're acting, that's how they're going to act, okay? So if we're constantly flitting from thing to thing to thing, trying to be the perfect one, that's what's going to happen. So just take a breath. What do your kids need to be in? So do you remember how I said I was Christ? But Wednesday night, always Wednesday night, it's church night, okay? Most communities have that set up. So us going to Power Life is super important. Church on Sunday morning is super important. These are activities. It doesn't have to be quality trumps quantity all the time, Okay. So if you want to raise your child in that way, but then you're not doing those activities, how can you fit that in? What can you recenter yourself with? Okay. And for you, it might not be church. It might be something else. Okay. So I also know that on those nights, I don't schedule my doTERRA events. I don't schedule oil classes. Okay. Here's another thing. I always make sure that Tuesday and Thursday nights, those are my class nights. Every Wednesday morning, I have coffee with Katie. Okay. So I start to create a flow. Do you see this? I start to create a flow in my life. If exercise is a priority, I have that scheduled in. So what you do is you put your top priority commitments on your calendar. And then maybe like if you look at your calendar and you're like, hey, I've got time to volunteer on Friday night, or I've got time for this, then you add it in. What I see people do is they become so stretched thin because they volunteer for a million things and then they're running around like a rabbit with their head cut off, and it's not fun. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. And remember, then we start to get into the constricted. Okay. So that's your assignments for this week. Okay. Remember, I said this is going to be a couple of part series. We're going to start to go into more routines and more things on this. And I know you guys want a lot more on this, ladies. I know you do, because it is a big beast of a topic to take on. I can't get to all of it in this, but this is your starting point. This is the next step. Figure out your priorities for right now and for this season, and then start to look at your home. And start to see where your schedule is. Does your schedule match up? And so if you're not doing a schedule, if you don't know where your time is spent, one of my biggest pieces of advice that I give people is to take for a week, just track what you're doing. Just start there. Don't even look at what you need to start eliminating yet. Just start with, what am I doing? What am I spending my time on? And track every single hour of the day, right? Just print out a calendar. You can print out a calendar from any phone, any computer, blank page calendar with the hours on it, and start to track what you're doing. So then you can become aware of, how do I start to create more peace? Because to create the peace, we have to know what we need to let go of. We have to know what those balls are. Okay. So number one, you're going to start to work on your priorities. What's your priorities for the rest of this year? And then what's your soul priorities? Okay. Remember, always evolving, always changing, because everything's a cycle, but start to look at that right now. And then as we go in, start to see, what do I already have on my list? What do I have on my list right now? And then start to add the pieces back in. Okay. So what are you spending your time doing? You know, I'm going to tell you, I tell this story all the time, so you might have heard it. When I first started creating a business in doTERRA, my husband worked all the time. So he was not really an option for support to help me with the kids. And so even though he was emotionally supporting me and starting a business, physically, he wasn't there very much to help me. And so he was when he could, but I had to learn how to juggle things. And I had 2 little kids at home, and I didn't live around family. So I didn't have a ton of support. And I realized I was starting to say, like, you know, what am I spending my entire day on? And so I did this activity myself. That's how I know how to tell it to you. I'm passing on my tools, ladies. And I did this activity, and I realized I would spend so much time doing laundry. Okay. So I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to throw a load in. And then that would lead to, oh, I'm just going to wipe this counter. And then it like snowballed. And I realized that half of my day was spent tidying up my house and doing laundry. So I switched it to, I didn't do any laundry at all until 1 day a week. And I still have that practice in place, is that I wait to do all the laundry so that it's my focus. And a lot of times I'll put in brain nourishment, and I'll do some podcast. I'll listen to a book as I'm doing all of that. But how many times do we put in a little laundry, and then we put it in the dryer, and then it sits in the dryer, and then it's in the back of our head, oh, I got to fold that laundry. I got to fold that laundry. Okay. So think of that, just that simple act of saying, okay, Fridays was my cleaning day and doing laundry, and the rest of the week, I didn't do any of that. It was huge. It was huge. I freed up enough time to create a 6-figure business in 18 months. Yeah. Okay. So you think this is just little stuff and it doesn't matter? This is what I've done to be successful and to be where I'm at, is I started to block off my time. I started to say no. Somebody told me super early on, I had a beautiful wise mentor. His name's Rod Richardson, if you know him. And he told me, the biggest secret to success is to learn how to say no 1,000 times. so that we can create peace, so that we can stay attention or focused on attention to what aligns with us right here in this moment, and to find that inner peace. Okay. So whether you're building a business, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a mom that's ready to tackle a new school year, whatever it looks like, I want to help you find more peace in this. Okay. So today, hopefully these tips hit home with you. Okay. I don't want you to be the frazzled mom running around trying to figure out all the things, feeling like she's a failure, feeling like she's overwhelmed, thinking that you need a prescription medication to help you just cope with everyday life. Now, if you need that, again, please seek that medical help. But a lot of times we just need to learn how to do less, to release, to relax, and to find that inner peace. It's in all of us. It's all right there. It's waiting. It's waiting to come out. It wants to come out. If you're here on this call, it's because it's ready to come out. Okay. And so this week, again, I want you to figure out what are your priorities, where are you spending your time, and then start to see how can you get them to mesh. We'll be back next week with part 2, and this is going to be to start to create some routines in your home for your kids. It's going to be like a back to school kids, and some of that's with oils, and some of that's with all the other things. So if you haven't grabbed my empath guide yet, make sure you go over to magicwithkatie.com and grab that. I'll put that in the show notes. You can always find it in the show notes. Also, I'm always here to support you. I do have tools. And essential oils are a big part of my toolbox. So if you need ideas, if you need help with your oils, make sure you're reaching out to me and connecting with me. I've got a lot more in the pipeline coming from you, for you. I've simplified my life even more lately. And when that happens, more creativity comes so that I can serve more. So stay tuned for a lot of that. It's been a pleasure to have you here with me. Forward this on to somebody, share this with somebody that might need this today. I know we have a lot of moms with the kids going back to school, and I know that we feel like sometimes we have a million things going on and we don't have time for us, but that's not true. We can all find that inner peace. So thank you so much for being here with me. This was Coffee Chats with Katie. Join me next week at 10 a.m. for part 2. Grab your brew. I'll talk to you later. I love you all.